Hello, friends. Welcome to Liberated Living. We offer fully accredited holistic e-courses and ebooks for professionals, individuals, couples, and families. And today I felt inspired to talk about the 5 love languages. And whether your relationships are flourishing or failing, it never hurts to take a look at ways we can dive even deeper when challenges may arise and what we can do about deconflicting any of these challenges. Because if we want to get beyond any kind of relationship conflict, it's important to go beyond the temporary fixes to identify solutions and experience lasting conscious relationships. So we must go deeper. So I wanted to cover first, if we're going to explore the 5 languages, I think it's important to first take a look at first how we perceive life, knowing that we perceive life through our own lens and cognitive filters. And in relationships, we often find this to very much be relevant. And the majority of these perspectives are derived from our subconscious programs due to inherent conditioning, which is our epigenetic behavior from our ancestors and other generational patterns. We also have societal conditioning, as well as limiting beliefs that will form and imprint most of our subconscious programs from maybe past events and primarily in our youth prior to the age of 7, when our subconscious is the most impressionable, and which will become the perception of our current reality now. So I want to take a look at this and also address the patterns that we have in our relationships now and how those are formed, so we can also learn how to recode the subconscious. So we will be getting into a little bit of genetic recoding, which is a term we have coined in looking at how to recode the genetic programming from our subconscious beliefs. So becoming aware of these programs is, I believe, our life's journey toward self-awareness that is designed to free us from limitations that are the cause of any self-imposed bondage. And relationships are very helpful because they are generally the mirror into our own consciousness, where we can see any areas we have any distortions. In essence, our self-awareness and our growth lies access primarily in our significant others and in other individuals, because we all have our own blind spots, if you will. We don't see ourselves. We have to see behaviors exhibited in others, because others are just a mirror to our own consciousness, our own projections, and our own cognitive filters. So I want to start by addressing this inherent programming that is due to these codependent patterns. So we must first look at any kind of codependent patterns we may have, whether it's to food, to any substances, to relationships, or any area that we may go to escape discomforts and pain, to shopping perhaps. So this is very important as we take a look at what voids we're trying to fill by escaping behaviors, instead of looking at, again, getting to the core and the root, so that we can begin to free ourselves from any conflict within ourselves and relationship patterns. So to truly create an impact and reprogram the subconscious beliefs at the DNA level, we must make sure we are addressing this inherent programming. So it's important that we lend these unmet needs or perceived voids from perhaps childhood the attention that they truly deserve. And our inherited dispositions can often be the most stubborn emotional patterns to overcome. The perceived voids evolve as a result of a child perhaps seeking to fill a need for love and affection, beginning with a parent during maybe difficult times and perceiving those needs as not necessarily being met. Whether the parent did their best to adequately meet the child's needs, and the child may have felt unseen or unheard, so that the parent may be doing the best within their own scope of understanding with a child, whether it's their own or not. However, there are moments that we don't know whether it's going to have maybe scar or wound a child, okay? So this is in no means to condemn anyone. This is just taking a look at how these are imprinted into our conscious and subconscious field, and more or less how they become perceived voids. So when we look at perceived voids, we recognize that they evolve from, again, these unmet needs, particularly during our youth or during these difficult times. And it can leave a child feeling unloved if they were maybe told no or denied something. It may leave them feeling wronged or shamed. And as we often know, that shame is an emotion, a lower emotion that can cause us to feel stuck or stagnate. And if we tend to feel guilty, or, it will leave this imprint or association, belief that maybe a child is not worthy of more, not deserving. So in any moments that we don't feel deserving of more in our life, there's often some areas of shame that we need to address or take a look at, because the shame is really the block that's keeping us stuck. And not feeling loved or good enough for love or worthy of love when we desire it are common subconscious beliefs, or egoic programs, if you will, in which most fears are centered, because it's just a limiting belief of not feeling loved from maybe a conditioned event. And if the child feels that, his or her emotional needs were dismissed or overlooked, then the child may not be able to self-regulate emotionally, and causing poor coping mechanisms of this escapism as a means to self-soothe, i.e. through the codependency path, right? Wherever they're escaping to for comfort. And it's no one's fault. Again, the child may not have felt loved, but unfortunately the damage can last a lifetime. And just as any therapist would tell you, these are often these events that have been programmed in subconscious that continue to repeat patterns, and primarily in relationships. So most commonly, these unfulfilled needs are unwittingly transferred to a partner or spouse, now placing those expectations on the partner to meet these needs, great or small. Whoops. So we may not recognize that oftentimes we are projecting these needs because we're operating unconsciously and not aware of these programs until we choose to revisit these programs and recode the belief. So these perceived voids often translate to that of the primary love language that we were denied of, and in turn desire from a partner today, and therefore become capable of only receiving love in a specific manner, which limits ourselves from feeling loved. So for example, if we do not receive adequate affection as a child, we may become desperate for it as an adult or from a partner. No fair, right? So let's go ahead and just explore for just a moment the love languages. So what is your primary love language? And have you ever thought to explore why? Imagine, if you would, an ideal relationship, but the only disadvantage that stifles the growth and success of any romantic partnership is hinging on the individual terms and conditions that we may be placing on a partner. So take, for example, a child who may have felt physically abandoned in youth that will consequently have the propensity to turn to abandoned partnerships or potentially abandon their own partner when they experience any kind of fear or the limiting belief begins to be triggered and activated. This fear is conditioned by the past experiences from these same patterns and belief in abandonment that reinforces the self-sabotage behaviors. Do you know anyone who has a fear of abandonment? This is very common. Consequently, their love language type will most likely be quality time, because it is likely an unmet need or void in their childhood. Now, we could also find that in ways in which we did feel loved as a child, we often can qualify areas where we do feel loved, and then we no longer hold any blocks around receiving love in that particular love language, whether it was words of affirmation, acts of service, or so forth. If you're familiar with any of these love language types, that was published, a book that was published back in 1992, I believe, from a marriage counselor, Gary Chapman, and he covered the 5 love language types. So if you don't know your type, I would just recommend going back to this old book, but identifying and assessing what your love language type is. And if you don't know, hopefully you can discover something today as we explore some of this. All right, so as an example, from the fear of abandonment, you may see this in yourself, and it may not necessarily always be in a romantic partner. It can be in many other facets of your life. So if you seek acknowledgement from a parent, then you will seek the same acknowledgement maybe with others, and again, in the primary relationships, most commonly found in a partnership, romantic partnership. So it was likely conditioned by the parent that we seek it from, because that's where we felt the lack from within ourselves and perhaps maybe one of our parents. And these generational patterns will continue to repeat. So we often look at, if the parent couldn't give it to us, then they probably didn't have it for themselves or embody it from within, right? And we have learned that the same style of absence as the parent that we didn't receive acknowledgement or validation from, seeking it now again and continuing to repeat and recycle those same patterns, i.e. in the form of physical affection, quality time, gifts, or words of affirmation, and acts of service. As an example, those are the 5. As an example of the void that may become one of our predominant love languages until it is no longer perceived as a void to feel. So see if you can relate to this. And these are examples of how we unconsciously operate from fear within our relationships, which will only work to our disadvantage by depending on others. So wouldn't this behavior disqualify the good and love that others are perhaps demonstrating if we failed to receive it in the form that the love is available to us? It's as if someone's dropping a gift off at the door every day and we're not allowing ourselves to open the gift. Because maybe perhaps we're expecting the gift to become available in another form, which maybe isn't through the primary love language of gifts. So this is only an act of conditional love. And this would also squander the love we want to both give and receive. And doing so takes the power out of our hands as well as out of the hands of the others that also want to express their affection towards us and also simply love and be loved, which is a lose-lose scenario, right? So perceived voids persist throughout our life as we seek to compensate for the lack of overcorrecting within primary relationships, which will create power struggles and entanglements until we learn how to break the destructive pattern. And that is change our epigenetic expression by genetically recoding the subconscious patterns. The positive takeaway from perceived voids, though, is that through the determination of working through them with healthy and adaptive coping responses, we will learn how to turn a weakness into a strength. And more than likely, we can master the previous weakness that perhaps it may even translate into a career or transferable skill that can finance our passions or lifestyle. For instance, the victim of emotional abuse may turn to a vocation as a victim's advocate, providing emotional support and so forth. So it's important to take a closer look to better understand ourselves and learn where our codependent behaviors come from, which will help explain why we continue to attract certain types of people and repeat lessons in our life, which we know the common adage that lessons will only repeat if we do not learn from them. So we're going to cover this more in our next video, as we can also cover the attributes of these following archetypes and consider who this could also pertain to and which roles may apply to you. So stay tuned for that, as we will also cover the relationship empowerment dynamic. And thank you so much for joining me. If you felt that you found some value, or if there's anyone that came to mind that you would also like to share this information with, and if you want to check out any of our practitioner diploma courses that you can share with your clients as already done for you, the workbooks and e-courses, or if you would like to have some more support on your healing journey, we also have participant e-courses available for you that are currently on sale now. And I will also provide a link to that if you would like to check out some information or even just dive deeper on your journey, being guided to your own individual and intuitive answers. Or if you'd like to even find support on your journey to align to your higher soul purpose, if that should be something that you're looking for right now, and activating your potential. That is the purpose of why our courses have been designed, is to help with anyone on their journey to upgrade to the next level of life, of where you or anyone is wanting support at this time. So click the link to learn more, and we look forward to welcoming you. Goodbye for now.
Liberated Living offers online self-healing courses for individuals, students, and families, as well as internationally accredited online diploma courses to help qualified coaches, therapists, healers, and other holistic practitioners to become certified professionals.
To get started or check out our internationally and fully accredited self-healing diploma courses for either professionals or individuals, click on the link provided, or you can visit our courses page at liberatedliving.com for a complete list of all of the courses. You can also register to receive the free introductory e-course to genetic recoding, which is a prerequisite to the genetic recoding diploma courses, if you'd like to learn more.
Thank you so much for joining us.